want to give you a brief introduction to functions. We've seen functions actually already. We just probably haven't called too much attention to it. It's whenever you've seen something written like this, f of x equals, and then some sort of formula after it. Now, as we progress, especially in Algebra 2, you're going to see functions a lot. And the image that I want to kind of come to your mind when you think of functions is maybe this one. This is a picture from one of my favorite books, The Sneetches. And it's this machine where something comes in and then some rule happens. Something happens to what goes in and something else comes out. In this case, the Sneetches that go in don't have stars, and once they do come out, they have stars. But mathematically, what happens is usually things get added to or subtracted or multiplied or some combination of all those different things. And what we care about is, what the output is. So here are a couple different types of questions. The first is simply evaluating functions. And so here is a formula. This is telling us the rule. This is telling us what happens to something that goes inside. The rules can have different names. This rule is called f, which is the most common. F of x is what you'll see most often. They also can be written according to different variables. This one happens to be written in terms of t. This one's written in terms of r. It's quite common to write your rules with terms of x, so that's why you might see f of x. Either way, what this is saying is that whatever goes in needs to be multiplied by 2 and subtracted 3 from it. I know, a handful there. So anyway, this says find f of 7. And so what that means is put a 7 into this machine and see what comes out. And so to do that, I'm going to type 2 times 7 minus 3 and just evaluate that. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 minus 3 is 11. And so 7 is what we call the input, and 11 is the output to this function. And 11 would be the answer here. In this question, g of r is now negative 5 times r plus 13. So that means whatever goes inside gets multiplied by negative 5, and then 13 gets added to it. And so this question is asking us, what is g of 3? So that means put a 3 in for r and see what comes out. So negative 5 times 3 plus 13. So the negative 5 times 3 part, that's negative 15. Negative 15 plus 13 would be negative 2, I believe. You can try this one a second if you want. Hit pause maybe and try it on your own. In this particular case, you would do 13 times 3. And then take away 2 from that. So 39 minus 2 would give us a final answer of 37. And one other question. This says, what is f of 30? And so here it's kind of convenient that each of these machines had different names. So this is saying put a 30 into the f function. And so the f function was this one. And so I'm going to follow f's rule to do that. I'm going to take 2 times 30. And subtract 3 from it. And 2 times 30 is 60, and 60 minus 3 would be 57. So a final answer to that would be a 57. Now, another thing that you can do with functions is you can either graph them or you can look at a graph to evaluate them. And so in this particular exercise, we'll be looking at a graph and trying to evaluate things. What you'll need to know is that the input to the function is what's in parentheses there, and you should think of that as an x coordinate, and the output is the y coordinate. And so when this says h of 3 equals something, what that means is figure out what output you get when you put in a 3. In other words, what y coordinate do you get when you put in a 3 for x? And so if I look at this, here's the 3 for x, that's our input, and the output that we would get, coincidentally, is also a 3. In this question, h of negative 2, that's saying what output do you get when you have an input of negative 2. And so here's negative 2 as an x. If we go down to its output, it looks like this graph is giving us a negative 4. over here, k of 0, k is this graph, and this time when we plug in a 0 for x, we get out a y-coordinate of 5. And if you want to try the last one, go ahead and hit pause. -4 for an x-coordinate gives us a y-coordinate of 8. And so we would say k of -4 equals 8. So there's a little bit of an introduction to functions. Give these guys a try, and let me know if you have any questions, and come back for the next video.